Joining now to discuss, civil rights activist and former president of the North Carolina NAACP, Reverend William Barber. Reverend, good to see you. As always, his latest book is called We Are Called to Be a Movement. Reverend, today we saw Jacob Blake Sr. in Washington for this anniversary march, 57 years after MLK. Just tell us, reflect for us, if you will, on the moment in which we find ourselves.
Well, thank you so much, Jake. And let me just say on behalf of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, where I'm co-chair with my colleague Liz Theo Harris, we cannot forget, Jake, that the original March on Washington was not I Have a Dream. The speech was Normalcy Never Again. And it was not about a single issue. It was about addressing justice and jobs. So a march is often a sign, but it's not the whole. And so we have to penetrate through that. And what's going on? We can't miss right now. There's what's happening is people are coming together, whether it's the March on Washington, the Black Lives Matter, Poor People's Campaign had a virtual march June 20th, 3 million people showed up, Women's March, all of these things. They're saying this can't be normal. What can't be normal? Black people being lynched by police, being killed on camera, voter suppression, 180,000 people dead because we didn't handle the coronavirus right, the denial of stimulus checks, denial of sick leaves, trillions of dollars given to corporations, refusal to help communities, 140 million poor, low-income people before COVID, 700 people dying a day before COVID, 80 million people uninsured, underinsured. People are saying something's wrong, immigrants dying in concentration camps. The march, just like in 63, is a penetration point. It's not the whole, it's a penetration point that people are calling out the politics of death, necropolitics, systems that are costing people their lives and saying it's not normal and we're not going to let it be normal.
So Jacob Blake's father today highlighted the way police had treated his son, 7 shots to the back, compared with how police treated 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who frankly got to go back home to Illinois after prosecutors say he shot 3 people. Blake Sr. said, quote, "There are 2 justice systems right in front of us." You agree with that?
There are 2 justice systems. There are multiple problems that are creating death. You could go back to Dalen Roof, who ended up getting a hamburger after he murdered people in the church in South Carolina. What we have is 2 Americas, 2 realities. And it's not just simple as black-white. Just like the original March on Washington understood, jobs and justice was not just about black-white. They were pushing for a Civil Rights Act that was going to expand and open up things for black people and for women and for Latinos. The reality is this killing of people, cops killing people, using the power of the state to kill people, also points to the problems in our judicial system, the denial of health care, the denial of living wages, that also, Jake, kills people. That's what I want to drive home. America is going to have to deal with death, because we say life is our first principle, life living in the pursuit of happiness. There's a lot of death, unnecessary death going on. The deaf people, all these people that are dying who were forced to go to work in lethal situations. People dying because of police. People dying because they don't have health care. We are at a moment in this country where we're going to have to decide whether or not we're going to honor that first principle, life, and that first principle of the Constitution, the establishment of justice, because separate and divided systems create the politics of death. And I'm reminded of Coretta Scott King, Jake. Coretta Scott King one time said, violence is not just my husband being shot, but violence is denying people health care, denying people labor rights, denying people living wages. We are in a situation of policy violence that must be transformed by policy justice.
So, Reverend, I do have to ask, we're in the middle of a pandemic that is hitting communities of color and lower income communities harder than it is hitting white people and wealthier people. And I have to say, just looking at these images, a lot of people are wearing masks. That's true. But in general, it's a lot of people in one place. And there is no social distancing. And I am concerned, just as an American, about the people who are there. We are in the middle of a pandemic. I understand the moral call to be there and protest, but do you have any concerns about the fact that this might be, in addition to an important event, also a potential super spreader event?
I've got great concern, and I have to be honest about that. That's why we're doing a digital gathering that I'm speaking at tonight. In June 20th, we did a digital gathering. 3 million people showed up online. is hurtful, and the fact that we really didn't have to be here in August if we had dealt right as a country. But I also want to flip that question. What's going on when people are hurting so bad and fear so bad and see so much racism and so much hurt and so much destruction that they would, in fact, go into the public and would say to folk like me, I have an immunity deficiency, I can't. We're going. This is public mourning, Jay. People are hurting. And when George Floyd, when he said, I can't breathe, that was shorthand for how a lot of people feel. I can't breathe because I'm being forced into work in a lethal situation. I can't breathe because I don't have health care. I can't breathe because I don't even have living wages to make it. And it was not just an I can't breathe for black people. It was an I can't breathe for the way in which the system, particularly under Trump, has weighted itself against the people. And sometimes a moment of mourning, people have no option but to scream. I am deeply aware. I have friends that were out there. I saw people I know. But I also know people are hurting. They're upset. They feel as LeBron James said the other day, they're afraid. And when Trump the other night trying to make suburban America afraid, let me tell you what people are really afraid of. They're afraid of dying. They're afraid of not having health care. They're afraid of being killed by the police. They're afraid of not having living wages. They're afraid of their rents and their mortgages and being evicted. They're afraid of their water and their utilities being cut off. And that's just not a fear of black people. That's a fear of all people. They're afraid of voter suppression in the midst of a democracy. They're afraid and they're hurting. And what we see today, and when you see any other you are seeing public mourning. That's why I said to Vice President Biden, the hope is in the mourning.
Yeah.
What we have, O-U-R-N-I-N-G, we must turn this mourning into public policy of justice and freedom for all. Otherwise, America is in some serious trouble if we can't do that in the midst of a pandemic.
Reverend William Barber, God bless you, sir. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, my friend.